Board Member Bennett. Board Member Brogy.
Present.
Board Member Foy. Board Member Morgan.
Present.
Board Member Parks. Board Member Pollock.
Present.
Board Member Ramirez. Board Member Sharkey. Board Member Zaragoza.
Here.
Chair Long.
Here. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the minutes of the last meeting on February 13, 2018. Is there any discussion on this item? Thank you. It's been moved and second. Any further discussion? Do you need a roll call or can we just all say aye? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? It has been approved. Thank you. Moving on to the agenda review. Is there any modifications to the agenda that is provided? And saying none, all in favor of approval of this agenda review? We're good?
So
In
moved.
favor?
Second.
Thank you. It's been first and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Abstentions? It's been approved. Sorry, thank you for the motions. Now moving on to public comment. Do we have any public comments today? I'm sorry, Chair. I'll hold on to it. Okay, we have no comments for items not on the agenda today, so we will move on to the board comments. Anyone have any updates?
I have just one question. So, Mike, Mike, that smoldering, what do you call it? Oil from the hills. Has that been taken care of, or?
The fire department was able to put out, my understanding, the vast majority of those using this foam they purchased from a company in New Jersey. I believe some of these seeps are still smoldering. I guess there was one that's been smoldering for years, burning underground north of Fillmore. Is that correct? Yes. And I guess there's some near the top of Sulphur Mountain that just aren't accessible. So, although the major rain we had may have helped with that also, because that was quite a downpour.
Okay, good.
Okay. Commissioner
There we
Berge?
go. Can I just make a comment with regard to the burn above Fillmore? The information I have, and I'm trying to recall where I learned this, is that those that the fire department and whatnot that are monitoring that consistently had been advised years ago when it first started to not put the fire out entirely, because then just the gas is going to be emitted. They want the gas to burn off. That made sense to me. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Natural flare.
Great. All right, moving on to consent items 9 and 10. Can I get a motion? Okay, it's been motioned by John and a second by Commissioner Sharkey. Any discussions? All in favor say aye. Aye. And any noes? Any abstentions? Motion has been approved. Thank you very much. Moving on to the regular agenda, item number 11, approval and authorization of the acceptance of the grant award from the California Air Resources Board.
Yes. Chair Long, members of the board, Mike Villegas, Air Pollution Control Officer. In February, I briefed your board on AB 617, which is probably the most significant piece of air quality legislation in the past 30 years. This new legislation adds requirements for community-focused planning, community-focused air monitoring, emission reduction programs focused in specific communities, and incentive programs to target clean technology in these same communities. The bill also includes provisions to ensure that our district rules are implementing the best available retrofit control technology for certain facilities in these communities. It increases maximum penalty fees and provides greater availability to the public of air emission information. In response to AB 617, CARB has implemented their Community Air Protection Program. Part of this program is to provide funding to districts to implement this new mandate. The California Air Resources Board, CARB, has set aside an allocation for us of $142,000, and this is consistent with the amount we worked with the other districts through the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association. These funds would need to be either encumbered or expended prior to the end of the upcoming fiscal year, which would be June 30, 2019. Staff recommends your board authorize us to accept these funds, and to let you know, with this new workload, we believe that we can implement these mandates with the existing staff resources we have in place. I just want to give you one little late-breaking piece of news. We just heard that the state doesn't have the current desire to continue this funding for this new mandate beyond this initial round. And I'm leaving this afternoon for Capcoa to meet with the Air Resources Board on this and industry on this same issue. But I'll also be meeting with our legislative delegation. I have a meeting scheduled with Senator Jackson to let them know that it's going to be very challenging to fund a program such as this with stationary source fees, in essence, permit fees, when you look at the vast majority of the emissions, especially when you look at toxics, they are mobile source related. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Mike, but they're not going to get rid of the mandate. It's still going to be there, but they're not going to pay for it.
That's where the heartburn
I think state of
starts.
California should pay for any mandate it has us do.
Yes, but remember in California law, if the agency has the authority to assess fees, then they just kind of pass the ball to you. But what
Right.
I'm saying is we can only assess fees on permitted facilities, and when you look at air toxics risk, 70% of it's diesel particulate, which is by and large mobile.
So should we let everybody know that the fees that we may raise to help raise that money is because of the state of California, not us?
That would be, but
I mean, I
I'm
want to make
hopeful
sure
that
we
we're going to.
promote that.
Oh, absolutely. We
Okay.
will let them know, but certainly an initial push by myself and the rest of the air districts will be to make sure that the state legislature understands that it's not probably an appropriate way to fund a program that's focused on air toxics largely from mobile sources.
Commissioner Ramirez?
Thank you. Sorry to be late. I want to give a disclaimer here. I'm the governor's appointee to the Commission on State Mandates. I just got reconfirmed by the Senate last week. So I, in my capacity as commissioner, not as an individual city council person representing Oxnard, but just theoretically, the point of view of the cities. We also have someone representing supervisors, Lee Adams from Sierra County. This is the issue that comes up with the Commission on State Mandates, which decides whether or not a claim for funding should be allowed by an entity such as the APCD or a school district or a county or a city or a sheriff's department, et cetera. The legislature is supposed to do an analysis if it's new and enhanced services, how much the funding should be. But it's very, very legalistic and tight to find a new and enhanced service. And as you say, if the entity can charge a fee, it's not allowed to put it back on the state. But I do think the issue is the adequacy of funding for a lot of these programs. And even if you're getting funding, it's not enough to do what we would like to do ideally. So please take it up with me if you have an issue, and I will try to convey that, not necessarily in reference to any particular actual case, but just in general, because I've been saying to my colleagues up there, the state needs to fund these programs and not leave our local jurisdictions hanging.
That's right.
I would agree that that should go hand in hand with many of our mandates, or the majority.
All of the mandates.
All right, any further comments on this item? And seeing none, can I get a motion?
Move the recommended action.
Second?
Okay, it's been motioned and second. Any further discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstention? Motion has been approved. Thank you. Item number 12.
Chair Long, members of the board, Stan Cowan, Air Quality Engineer. This item is a proposal to repeal existing bylaws for the Clean Air Fund Advisory Committee and to adopt new and improved version thereof. The Clean Air Fund, as you're aware, was started in 1992 by a donation from the 3M Company of $1.5 million. The funding is held in trust by, as you know, the Ventura County Community Foundation. Members of the advisory committee for the Clean Air Fund are appointed by the board, and they do review projects, make recommendations for projects that reduce emissions of criteria pollutants and greenhouse gas emissions. The existing operating procedures is what the existing bylaws are called, was adopted by your board in 1992, and last year the committee formed a subcommittee to draft new bylaws to define how the committee operates, its membership structure, and conditions of membership. They made a recommendation of a proposal this past month, March of 2018, subject to your board's approval. The most significant changes, there's 5 of them, specifically authorizes projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, increases the number of members on the committee from 11 to 13. The terms of the committee membership, before they were unlimited, now it goes for 4-year terms, and existing members would be grandfathered until 2022. Officers, the chair and co-chair would hold office for 2 years or until successors are elected, and you would need 2/3 of the committee members to approve any changes to the bylaws subject to your board's approval. This has been reviewed by County Council, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and second.
There is a comment, I believe.
Oh, I apologize, you're right. There is one comment from James Reach. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm a member of the Clean Air Fund Advisory Committee, and I was chairman of the Bylaw Revision Subcommittee. I urge that you adopt this. You obviously are, but just to briefly explain to you that this is a major change in our mandate in as far as before we were only able to have programs that reduced emissions on the criterion pollutants like NOx and reactive organic compounds. Now we're going to be able to do programs reducing greenhouse gases, the type of pollutants that cause climate change. So it's a major change in what we do as a Clean Air Fund board for reducing pollution in Ventura County. So other than that, you seem to be favorable to our bylaw revisions. It has been reviewed by County Council, so please go ahead and make your motion. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you. And with the remaining time, I'd just like to say, please come to the various Earth Day celebrations occurring this month in Ventura County. In the city of Oxnard on April 14th at Plaza Park, there's an Earth Day event. On April 21st, there's an Earth Day event in both the cities of Ojai and the city of Ventura. And on April 22nd, hopefully there will be an event put on by the Chamber of Commerce of the city of Fillmore. So please come as the elected officials of Ventura County and show your support for environmental causes by coming to these.
Could I ask you one item? Article 4 for the composition, terms, and conflict of interest policy. On C, it states the members representing the constituents. Is there any definition for a business, civic, environmental, citizen, or transportation, or could that be added?
It could be added, but we, in fact, in December of, when was this? December of 1991, you actually, you being the Air Pollution Control District Board who was there in December of 1991, in fact, did do that. They made very specific categories. For example, for business, it was like 18 different things. You want me to read them to you?
No,
Okay.
I would like it included into what you've
we
provided.
actually wish you would not include it, and we're asking that you not constrain us with who we can select for our board into specific categories, like if you're a member of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, or if you're on the Ventura County Medical what was it called? The superintendent of public schools or the Ventura County Medical Society. There's very specific things for each category. For example, the last 3 people, including today's appointment that you did during the consent agenda, I don't believe they would qualify under these criteria. The last person for the business category we selected is a small business owner in Santa Paula who owns a industrial laser repair business in Santa Paula. He's a fine board member, has a great participation to our group, and because he's not on these constituent groups like the Ventura County Economic Development Association or something like that, should not mean he's not a good, productive member of our Clean Air Fund board. So I hope you don't do that, and you do not put in these specific constraints to our category. A citizen at large person who's on our member is a retired person who was with the Navy as a clerical person. She never was in any of these categories. She's making a great contribution as a citizen at large to our group. But
Can I ask how you make sure that all 4 of those groups are then represented?
well, we get an application and we discuss it, and staff tells us if they don't, and that's how we do it. And then you guys can review it and ratify it as you did today in your consent agenda. You saw Mr. Rubin's application form in your packet, and you apparently agreed to not take it out of the consent agenda and just accept him. He's a small business owner in Ventura who owns an audio retail business who you accepted today.
I'm not asking particularly about the person.
Okay.
I was asking to make sure that when we review things, that the group that's on this commission is the items that we talked about stated in your bylaws.
Okay, let me ask staff.
Is there a way that we can at least come back and just give some more guidance so that if either of you are not around and someone has to figure out how to appoint someone, that we have a little bit more detail as to what those groups are?
Certainly, we don't, as staff, we support the committee and then support your board because these aren't district funds. We don't say yay, nay on if that person's in business. I let them know from that looking at the original list, you were looking at Western States Petroleum, Vasita, EDC, VC. Kind of, I guess when I looked at that list, what I saw was the folks we permit and the regulated community who has the perspective of we would like to see emission reductions from these projects because that means that there's less burden placed on the regulated community. It was kind of like the air quality management plan. When you looked at the business representatives, they were kind of the stakeholders of folks responsible for reductions also. And that was kind of the inkling there. And then when you look at, let's say a person that, operates something that isn't under permit, is not responsible for emission reductions, I don't know if that falls under that. But that's really a board decision on, are we looking for that sector business? Does that mean the regulated community, or does that mean broader any business in the county?
I guess I would just ask my board members that on a commission that is providing information to us, are you wanting to make sure that it's in the 4 buckets that our bylaws state, or does it matter who's on the commission? I was under the understanding that it was a well-rounded commission based on these 4 items. So if I could get some response from our board members.
I think we should
Mr. Morgan?
we should keep it within our bylaws. That's what they're there for. If we're going to change anything, we've got to change the bylaws.
Okay.
So you have to have representatives from those different categories.
Okay.
Are we looking at, in the bylaws, Article 4, Section C?
Yes.
Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
It seems like everybody would fit into one of those categories. Every human being would fit into one of those categories. And it does say should consist. Would a solution be, should is, it's not must, it's should. It's like an aspirational thing. It seems to give us some flexibility without having to put everybody into a pigeonhole. So I think this would work for me.
Well,
Mr. Sharkey.
There we
There you
go.
go.
Yeah, we've got two different things here. We've got the bylaws, and I don't know when they were created. This is the creation document for the organization, I assume?
Yeah, when they first formed, I think back in 1991, the committee put together a really rough set of operating procedures. And that's basically how the committee was governed. And then recently, the committee is looking at being a little more formal, and I think it's a good idea to have bylaws in place, and I think it's good, but like I said, there's the issue of, and it's really a board call. When you look at the advisory committee, for the APC, that was kind of like people would like to say, well, some cities think, well, I would really like to have one of my major facilities having a voice on APCD rules. And that's kind of how we've always looked at the regulated community. And then the question is, when you look at 1991, what was laid out in that board letter said business, but it definitely shone a light on regulated community, VACITA, WISPA, et cetera.
So if I understand things correctly, we have broad categories, then we have this subsequent document that provides some specificity of listing.
Well, the old document provided some specificity.
Yeah.
And the new bylaws just say business, civic and environmental, civic.
Right, yeah, and I see the danger with, a 30-year-old document, or close to 30-year-old document, specifying constituent members, particularly if you don't have anybody that wants to do it. Knowing how these volunteer organizations work, sometimes you're happy to get people that are interested and willing to work. So if we have broad categories, I think your question is, how do we define the broad categories? And do we, it's maybe a legal question. Is there some term of art that we can use, or as Member Ramirez points out, this says it should, which is permissive and aspirational, and that may be sufficient. But I don't know if there's any danger of this getting out of hand with appointments that are so far afield they don't make sense. But we have to. I suppose we have to have some trust that people are going to make the right kind of decisions at some point. So I don't. Be careful. Yeah, I know. But I don't have a problem with the broad categories. If we need a definition, a page of definitions, then maybe we should do that. But that's a legal question then.
I think I was looking at it as more of putting a broad sentence to each one of them so that we can make sure we capture all, especially when we have new board members on a committee, that they could utilize this as a guiding document versus in 1991 or so, that was there. And I just felt that this might be missing. So I wanted to bring that up to all of you to make sure that we're providing the right guidance for our commission when they're going through their bylaws and say, okay, it says here I should. And depending on if it's a small, you could be a small business knitting, and you drive your Humvee everywhere, and you're civically engaged. You could be in any of those buckets. I'm just trying to ask for our board what the consideration is.
Could I ask a question? When it's talking about they should consist of members representing the following constituencies, could it just be members who are from the following constituencies, or do they actually have to be representatives of them? Parsing words, perhaps, but I guess that's the issue, is do we have clarity? And if it's interpreted that from the business, representing the business community would then be someone from EDC-VC versus just someone who's in the business community doing laser printers. So to me, I don't have a concern of needing to have representatives of the organizations, just, people from the various sectors. So that would be my suggestion, is just from the, instead of representing the sections.
Anyone else?
Doesn't matter either way.
Legal counsel, is there any particular that we have to follow?
I think that as Board Member Sharkey eloquently explained, it's how much does your board want to drill down these different constituent groups. You can be broad and give everyone flexibility, or you can drill it down. And so from a legal perspective, it doesn't matter. Just if it's broad, then it will fall on staff and your board to decide if the person, does fall into a group and if they're acceptable. Otherwise, it takes discretion away from your board in that regard.
Okay.
But I like Board Member Parks' suggestion in terms of stating that members who are from, instead of representing, if that's the will of your board, to kind of get away from representatives, which might not really be accurate anymore.
Okay.
And would it also be appropriate to change the should to shall? Would that make a difference?
That's up to your board. Gives your board more flexibility in case someone doesn't necessarily fall into a category, then that doesn't disqualify them. If you put shall, then, and they're pretty broad categories, so I'm not sure how much of a difference that would make, but theoretically, shall would take away some of your discretion.
Okay.
We get in arguments with shall and will,
No,
not shall and should.
The
Shall and should are
reason,
not the same thing.
I think it's really important, the reason is to make sure that you actually looked at 9 and 10 and who was being put as a submittal for the applicant and whether they fit within these categories. I think that's our job to do that, and they have to follow the bylaws in which they're doing. So I think it is a very valuable discussion. If you don't think we need a little bit more detail on that, that is fine. Is there a motion to put shall, or is there any other change that anyone would state?
Just a couple things. The only time we'll know we'll have trouble is if we find some people that are being put on the board that aren't from those specific categories, should or whatever, shall. Then you start aligning the board a little differently. We have to make sure we stay in those categories. And rather than saying shall, I think should would be the appropriate word.
Just to get us rolling and on to another item.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion to approve the proposed wording, but substitute the word representing to just from? And that would be the motion.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. It's been first and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any noes? Abstention? Motion has been approved. Thank you very much to your committee for your work on this.
Thank you.
Next item is 13.
Yes, the district's information system division staff have been working to replace our old, outdated permit engineering and enforcement tracking system, which is a very important piece of software for any air district. Last year, staff visited with staff of the Santa Barbara County APCD and determined that there was a reasonable possibility that the software they had developed could serve as a good starting point for the replacement of our software. Basically, our staff, and we've set up a user group and a steering committee. Over a 5-month period, we analyzed the key modules of the Santa Barbara software and determined it indeed looks like a good fit for us. So we're going to try to move forward on this. In September of last year, your board authorized me to sign a license agreement with Santa Barbara County APCD to have their software installed on our computers, and allocated $5,000 in funding for their assistance in moving those key modules over to our computers. To date, we've utilized that funding, and as we move forward, we're projecting that through the end of the fiscal year, we'll need an additional $25,400 for assistance as we get the rest of the modules up and running. And then for next fiscal year, we'll include in the proposed budget the correct amount to deal with this. It was something that kind of took off. But one thing I need to point out is, even though it's an increase in funding, when you look at in comparison to going out, putting on an RFP for a vendor and having a custom application made for our district, we're going to save a significant amount of money, probably in the $200,000 range conservatively.
Any questions?
Mike.
Mr. Morgan?
We discussed this a little bit at the Tri-County thing.
Yes.
But did San Luis Obispo also go along with it? I can't remember.
No, they did not. No, they have their own.
That's right, because it'd be kind of fun to have all three working in the same kind of systems, but this is good.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any noes? Abstentions? Motion has been approved. Thank you. Number 14?
Wanted to give your board a quick update on the voluntary vessel speed reduction program that we've been implementing here with the Santa Barbara District in the Santa Barbara Channel. And my slide should be up any second. To put things in perspective, when you look at Ventura County, including the outer continental shelf, and you look at we're an ozone non-attainment area, nitrogen oxides are one of the critical, and in our situation right now, they are the critical pollutant to reduce ozone levels. When you look into the OCS and you look at the entire emission inventory, these ocean-going vessels account for 25% of the nitrogen oxide emissions in our region for Ventura County. We're talking about 2,500 transits a year, and these are a significant source of diesel particulate matter. However, that's been mitigated to a great extent by the fact that now all the shipping lines are mandated to use low sulfur marine diesel instead of bunker. And mostly these are cargo vessels on their way to the twin ports of San Pedro and Long Beach. Looking at the results from last summer's program, we had 11 shipping lines participate. That was 44 separate vessels and 143 transits. And we incentivize at 12 knots or less because the average speed is 14 knots without any slowing. And 66% of the transits actually went below 10 knots. So we're getting additional benefit there. It was over 83 tons of nitrogen oxides pulled out of our airshed with that project. The other thing is the Bay Area Air Quality Management District also participated this summer, mostly for ships approaching the Port of Oakland. And then when we looked at what happens in the region between the Bay Area zone and the Santa Barbara Channel, we found that 75% of the vessels either didn't speed up because they slowed down in either one to make up time, or either slowed down, or continued to stay at the lower speed. So it's a great program. On March 1st of this year, we had an event down at San Pedro, and we had Congressman Lowenthal attend. The 11 shipping lines received recognition and plaques. And Congressman Lowenthal has actually introduced legislation to have NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, create a recognition program for voluntary vessel speed reduction program in the Santa Barbara Channel specifically. He's got co-sponsors at this time, 4 of them, including Congressman Brownlee. And I'm working to hopefully get some Republican support and maybe even a co-sponsor. So what I'm doing is trying to get local business to support this legislation. The Port of Hueneme their board has taken a support position, the Oxnard Chamber, and just last month I met with the Visita Policy Committee, and a week and a half ago, their full board approved sending a letter which just went out. So, and I'm going to be working with Board Chair Long, and we're going to be reaching out to Congressman Knight also, because this is an incredibly cost-effective program. When you look at the cost-effectiveness threshold for best available retrofit control, for best available control technology, it's $18,000 a ton set by your board. Carl Moyer's been coming out in the $6,000, $7,000 per ton. Vessel speed reduction, even if you include all the admin costs and everything, is coming out at about $3,000 a ton. And in these next few years, as we get very close to the federal deadline for showing attainment with the ozone standard, reductions from these ships is going to be very important and could actually push us into attainment.
Madam
Great.
Chair.
Yes.
Mike,
Mr.
how many
Zaragoza.
whales did we save?
That's really hard to tell because
I know, we had a number before.
they knew how many were struck in the years before. And the interesting thing is that I would guess that number's only going to go up if they don't slow down, because we're seeing the whale populations recover. And so that means there's more whales in the channel.
And also, aren't they thinking of coming out with a decal on the ships that are participating in?
Really, what Congressman Lowenthal was looking for, and really when you talk to the shipping lines, the incentives are nice, but it's the public relations benefit.
For that reason, yes.
For that reason, Maris can say we're the greenest shipping line in the world, and now you've got 11 shipping lines coming
That's
in,
right.
so.
It's a competition thing.
All right, any further questions? Commissioner Sharkey?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Is this information up on our website? Can we point to this and say, hey, look what's going on here?
I'll have to put this report there.
This would be good stuff to have, this is.
And Commissioner Ramirez?
I was going to actually add that this is a great program that the public really needs to know. People love whales. They should also love plankton, which feeds the whales. But, I think it's one of those iconic animals that represents something that people love. So I think we could get a lot of good stuff for this.
I would
Let's put it
agree.
out.
Any further question or a motion?
Move to receive and file.
Motioned and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes, abstentions? Motion has been approved. All right, moving on to 15. Receive and file the state report regarding air pollution district's application. For the
No report. This
No
is just our
report?
standard federal grant, both the 105, which supports
Right.
general district operations. The next item is the 103, which helps support our PM 2.5 monitoring system.
Do we need to motion them separately, or can we move
to
to
receive and
approve
file.
both of them?
We don't need it at all? Okay.
Oh, we don't have to motion. Awesome, wonderful, done. All right, anything on 17? Any questions? This is a receive and file. Any other further questions?
Nope.
All right, and seeing that, I am closing this meeting. Thank you for everyone who showed up. Appreciate it and participated.